Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game. So, doing series on the MiSTer FPGA D10 Nano project, and a week ago I did a video on other games that work in the Nintendo 64 core that are not part of the retail library, and you guys really enjoyed that and wanted to see some more ROM hacks and fan games that will work on MiSTer FPGA, so I figured if you guys asked for it, I would make it. Before we get too far involved though, do me a huge favor down below, hit like and subscribe and ring that notification bell, definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, we got a Patreon link down below as well. And I decided to make this ROM hacks Mario theme, so the first game we're watching here that works on the core is the Magical Lands. We're going to be doing all Mario ROM hacks. Some of the best ones unfortunately don't work on real hardware, whether it's MiSTer FPGA or a real Nintendo 64, they're more designed for emulation, but all of these games you can load up on MiSTer FPGA today and 100% check out. And the Magical Lands is a totally trippy reinvention of Mario. You'll see here if we swim down into this fountain in Toad Town, you're going to find what basically looks like Luigi mixed with the Domino's Noid. And anytime you can get a Noid reference into a video, it's going to be a fun time, and anyone listening out there, make me a Noid 64. I would absolutely play that game on the channel. But this one right here is just a ton of fun, and it's a complete pivot on what you would expect out of Mario 64. And that is the great thing with the fan game and ROM hacking community. They are reinventing the wheel in pretty much every single release they have. And again, some of these are going to be better than others. I kind of just cherry picked the ones I really enjoy here. And you'll see now that we're into the castle, we're playing as Luigi, and everything has a completely different shine to it. And as we go into Bomb Battlefield here again, it's going to look different than you remember, but it's also going to be very familiar, because this game has some vibes that basically feel like Super Mario 3D Land on the 3DS. You're going to see certain things in here, at least to me personally, that have that same aesthetic. And that is the fun thing about these fan games. Every single creator or team of creators brings their own flair and their own personal touches to the game. So even though Bomb Battlefield here is going to have the same end goal, which is to get to the top and have a fight, the way you do it, the way you navigate it, and the things you're going to see along the way are 100% going to be different. Now do be aware that some of these games work on MiSTer FPGA, Nintendo 64, and software emulation, but on real hardware they might have a bit of slowdown here and there that wouldn't be on the emulator side of things, because some people will do enhancements that are better run on emulators, and some people will make games that just run on emulators. So if you feel any slowdown, it could just be that the creators are pushing a little bit too hard at the actual game. But that one, 8 out of 10, definitely recommend. Now let's take a look at Tribal Tropics here, which unlike the first game we showed you is more of a complete recreation of Mario 64, putting in all of its own levels. And that's what you're going to find with a lot of these different ROM hacks and fan games. Some of them are going to change up Super Mario 64, but it's going to be familiar. Others of them are going to basically just reinvent the wheel 100%, giving you new levels in a game you know, love, and remember. And this one right here is absolutely one of my favorites. I love how the level structure is laid out. I love being able to unlock and find new things, and some of the stars will actually let you stay within the level as well, taking a page out of something like Super Mario Odyssey. And that's always a nice thing when you get improvements like that, because honestly, exiting a course every single time you get a star can be a little bit annoying, and I love that some makers out there in the Mario community have done away with stuff like that, because you'll see here we already have one star, and when we grab the other one, we're still going to continue to be within this level. And as far as the performance on Tribal Tropics is concerned, this runs every bit as good as vanilla Super Mario 64 does, and that is always nice as well, because like I said, sometimes you're going to see performance hitches or the real hardware do strange things when it wouldn't actually happen on software emulation. And once you unlock this star here, an entirely new area of the map is just going to appear out of nowhere, showing you something new to do. And I love the sense of discovery in Tribal Tropics. This one is definitely a must hit if you want to play some new games on the MiSTer FPGA core. And the best part is a lot of these games have different soundtracks than vanilla Mario 64 as well, so go ahead and listen for like 35 seconds, but come back because I got a handful of more Super Mario 64 ROM hacks to show you that you're going to want to play. But enjoy!
Yeah, woohoo! Yeah.
Awesome music and works in the context of Super Mario 64, and now we're moving on to Dog Collab. That is the name of the ROM hack. At the beginning of the game, you and Peach have adopted a puppy, and you get to name it. So what better name for a dog, and excuse that E, it was a misspelling, than Doug. Just seems like a good name for a puppy. And this basically starts like any Mario game does. Bowser's going to come in, kidnap the princess, at least he leaves the puppy behind, or else this will probably be a John Wick ROM hack. And he's going to take off out of the roof, and you're going to start your adventure again. And this one has completely new levels, and it has a very big Super Mario Galaxy vibe to me, at least in this level right here, and some of the overall architecture within the stages just reminds me of Galaxy, and trust me, that's not a bad game to be reminded of. And this is going to fall into the category of games that are going to have completely new levels, completely new worlds. It's going to feel like a pseudo sequel to Super Mario 64, and again, this one is just a ton of fun. It really has a good level structure. It has a lot of different worlds to explore. You're going to see some enemies within the game that maybe you never saw in Vanilla 64, and you're going to have a completely new way to play with a lot of fun new features, and that is why all of these ROM hacks are good. We grew up on Super Mario 64, we love it, and maybe you always hoped that there was going to be a traditional sequel on the console. These are basically like the sequels we never actually played, and some of them are getting very close to every bit as good as the original Super Mario 64. Now again, there are dozens upon dozens of these ROM hacks out here. I just picked the ones that I found intriguing, so if you want to recommend more down below, whether they're Super Mario 64 or other games on the N64, I am all ears. Just let me know what you guys are thinking of. But as far as Dog Collab is concerned, I'm giving this one a 9 out of 10 as well. It's fun, the levels are great, it's got good music, and I love that it's basically a completely new recreation of Super Mario 64. Just definitely play it. Now let's move to Beyond the Cursed Mirror, which is a horror aesthetic Mario 64 ROM hack fan game that completely changes up everything, all of the environments being familiar but completely foreign at the same time. And this one plays around a lot with different types of audio, including more of a soundscape than a soundtrack, so 30 seconds to hear what we're talking about, then I'll be back with some gameplay. Obviously it's not music, it's more like an ephemeral soundscape, but it does work, and I love that Peach's castle has been 100% destroyed here, and you find this vine that you have to crawl up through a hole in the roof to get to the other areas of the castle. This basically just takes such a familiar location and changes it around to make you feel a little bit uncomfortable and confused as what's actually going on, and that is the fun thing about these ROM hacks. You can find the game that just basically recreates the colorful, charming nature of Super Mario 64 with its own new levels, or you can find something like this, which is just going to feel like a horror-light adjacent cursed Mario 64 experience, because Metal Mario is going to float up into the sky and smash through the windows right there, which do move around on the ground, which is a nice effect as far as Nintendo 64 hardware is concerned. And then you're going to come into this hallway right here, and you're going to be in an area of the castle you've never really seen before, and you're going to be very confused what's going on, and that gaze upon the new moon icon right there, the poster, definitely means more questions than answers at this point in the game, but definitely check this one out. It is a very interesting experience all around. I'd say 8 out of 10. Now let's move over to Gamma 64, which starts exactly like you would expect it to in Peach's Castle's courtyard here, but honestly this feels more like a beta Mario 64 from screenshots you saw back in the day during the development process than what you actually remember, and that's very interesting. Some people like to redesign the games to do something that it looks like it shouldn't, and that's what you're seeing here in Gamma 64, at least in the castle area. It's going to have familiar mechanics and layouts, but it's also going to feel different at the same time. And that's the fun part about all of these ROM hacks. Every single creator or team basically sets out to achieve a goal, whether that's completely new levels, whether it's changing current levels, or whether it's kind of almost recreating something that you saw in magazines back in the day. And that doesn't just happen with Mario 64, it happens with pretty much every Nintendo game out there from this era. You saw screenshots in a magazine, it looked different, and then you wondered why it didn't look like that when you got the game. Now this one at least at the start, is a lot more about exploring and figuring out the differences, and I would say this is like a 7.5 out of 10 to me, but do be aware these aren't real scores. It's just kind of how my interest lies as far as the ROM hacks are concerned. Something I love you might not like whatsoever, and something I'm not a huge fan of might be your new favorite game to play on the core, and that is the fun thing about these. There are hundreds of different fan games for Nintendo 64 that will run on real hardware, and you really can expand the library on MiSTer FPGA or on your real consoles as well. This first area here, there's a lot to run around, a lot of open area, and you kind of see areas that are bigger than you'd see in real Super Mario 64, at least as far as straight in front of you is concerned. I'm just not quite sure where you're supposed to go next on this one. It kind of confused me a little bit, but if you have any suggestions, leave me a comment down below. But it is another ROM hack that will work on MiSTer FPGA, and I will leave a list of the ROM hacks that I tried for this video that did not work whatsoever below as well, so you guys don't have to spend any time testing them. They were said to work on real hardware, they just wouldn't work on the core for me, unfortunately. Now the last game on the list is going to be Escape from the Jail Definitive Edition. This is basically a breakout game. It feels like Kaizo Mario 64, where you have to have some perfect jumps to progress throughout the game, and it's definitely going to troll you at certain spots. Unfortunately, at least here on the MiSTer FPGA core, there is this weird texture flickering, which is going to be very distracting. It seems like it's doing something that works on real hardware, just not the same way it would work on Nintendo 64 emulation. But I love that this game exists, and I love that eyeball there, if it spots you, starts shooting at you and plays the alert sound from Metal Gear Solid. This is definitely a very challenging ROM hack. You have to be perfect with all of your jumps, and if you die, you're going to be sent back to the jail cell, and you're going to have to do it all over from the beginning. Unfortunately, this flashing gets in the way a little bit, so it might be something you can tolerate, maybe it's not, but it is a very fun, challenging game, and if nothing else, give it a shot on software emulation. It really is worth its time. I would say as far as the difficulty, it is a 9 out of 10. But those are the ROM hacks I decided to test on this version of the video. You guys liked the first one so much I made this, and if you want to see a part 3, leave me suggestions of games you haven't seen yet that you know work on real hardware, and I will check them out on MiSTer FPGA. But there's so much more fun to have on MiSTer than just the retail library, so go out there, start experimenting around, test some things, and tell me if they work. But I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.